Good morning, and I'm Ian Wong, and welcome to the Community Covenant Morning News. The latest source for the latest information about Church at Home. You have the weekly news. Church at Home scientists and experts have released the results of a study that indicate a candle in the match or lighter should be useful. Now let's go to Chloe Wong for the weather forecast.
Hello Community Covenant, I'm Chloe Wong, and here's your weather forecast. As you can see, this week we'll have lots of sun and heat, so you want to go to our church website and download and print out the available resources there. Now back to you, Ian.
Now go to our reporter Randy Long checking in the front in from the middle of an active storm in Rocklin, California.
This is Randy Wong. I'm reporting to you from in the middle of this crazy storm in the middle of Rocklin, California. For Church at Home, you might want to have a drink also. Maybe a snack. This is a watermelon, but you can have a cinnamon roll. Maybe a cup of yogurt, a hard-boiled egg. Okay, this is Randy, back to you.
This has been the Church at Home Morning News. Hope you enjoy Church at Home. And now, peace.
So many places God is described as holy, and I think it's appropriate as we start our singing this morning that we're just reminded of God's holiness, His awesomeness, His majesty, His grandeur, His otherness, but also the fact that God is so near and so real. Let's sing.
Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. Early in the morning a song shall rise to Thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity. Holy, 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 all the saints adore Thee, casting down their golden crowns around the glassy sea. Cherubim and seraphim falling down before Thee, which word and are that evermore shall be. From the cradle to the cross, God with us, God with us. For this broken world you love, God with us, God with us. You gave up your only Son, God with us, God with us, so that all the world will know our God with us.
Well, so that all the world will know that God with us. One of the things that we continue to do while at church at home is we light a candle. And the candle represents what we just sang about, that God is with us, that Christ is present. And even though it's a symbol, it's just wax and fire, but it holds deep meaning and significance for all of us as we are still sheltered at home, but worshiping together and bonded in the unity of Christ. So if you haven't done so already, let's light our candle as a reminder that Christ is present with us.
I can't comprehend your infinitely beautiful and perfect love. Oh, I've dreamed dreams of majesty as brilliant as a billion stars, but they're never bright enough. After all, you are sing a song for you, my God, with everything I have in me, but it's never loud enough. After all, you are comprehend your infinitely less love.
Hey, good morning, Community Covenant Church. This is Jump Sunday, but let's be honest, it's not like our usual Jump Sunday. There's no water slides, there's no barbecue, there's no human bingo, there's no ice cream. But just because it's not our normal Jump Sunday doesn't mean that we're not going to have Jump Sunday, because I need this opportunity every year to tell you about my addiction. Yes, your senior pastor has an addiction problem. And my addiction is nature shows. They get me. I have so very little control when it comes to nature shows. I'll be watching TV and a commercial will come up and I can't stand commercials. So the first thing I do on a commercial, I grab the remote control, I start to channel surf. A giraffe. Neef, neef. And I'll be stuck there because I got to find out what happens to the giraffe. And this happened to me a while ago. I was just watching TV. Commercial comes on. A duck. There was this female duck, and you could tell it was a female duck by its colors and by the fact that the narrator said it was a female duck. But this female duck flew up into a tree, not into a tree, although unusual nature moment. No, there was a hole in the tree 30, 40 feet up from the forest floor, and it flew into the hole, laid its eggs, stayed with the eggs, and then all the eggs hatched. And one day after the eggs had hatched, the mama duck comes out to the edge, jumps, and majestically, it didn't make that sound, but you can imagine, just, and gently landed on the forest floor. But then the mama duck turns around and looks up into the tree and says, quackity quack. And I don't speak duck, but apparently quackity quack means jump. Because mama duck says quackity quack, little baby duck comes up to the edge, gets right up to the edge. And by the way, I'm a man. I like football and, barbecue and movies with car chases and car crashes. Those little baby ducks are abundantly cute. Just tremendously cute. And by the way, if you don't find baby ducks cute, there is something wrong with your soul. Okay, back to the baby duck. This really, really cute baby duck gets right up to the edge and looks over. Mama duck goes quackity quack, which, if you speak duck, means jump. Because that little baby duck jumps. Have you ever seen a baby duck fly? No, you have not, because they can't. This little guy jumps and flaps its wings uselessly. It just hits the forest floor, and I kid you not, it bounced. So it gets up, just goes, and starts waddling after Mom. But then Mama looks up again and says, quackity quack. Because there are still baby ducks up there, and one by one, every one of them get to the edge, hear Mama say quackity quack, jump, flap uselessly, hit the forest floor, bounce, and follow Mom. And then, just when you think it couldn't get crazier, the mama duck starts waddling towards the pond, which is about a mile away. And these little baby ducks follow their mom. You know how far a mile is when your legs are this long? They follow Mama Duck all the way to the pond. They get to the pond, they start to swim, and at that moment, I turn things off and just go, I'm a baby duck. And I got news for you this morning. You are a baby duck. Say it. Say, I'm a baby duck. I'm a baby duck and so are you. And that makes Jesus the mama duck. And don't take the analogy too far because it starts to fall apart after a while. But the reality is, Jesus stands at the bottom of your tree and my tree and says, quackity quack, jump. Jesus stands at the bottom of your life and my life and says, jump. Come, follow me. I want to take you to the pond and show you what life is supposed to look like. There's this moment at the beginning of Jesus' public ministry. He goes to this lake, and there's 4 fishermen, Peter, James, John, and Andrew. And this is what Jesus says to these 4 fishermen. He says, drop your nets and come follow me. Pay attention here to what Jesus doesn't say. Jesus does not say, drop your nets, come believe in me. Don't get me wrong. Do I think it's important for us to come to a cognitive conclusion about who Jesus says he is and what the scriptures say he did? Absolutely. We need to come to a place that we believe, but that's not what Jesus said in that moment. He did not say to those simple fishermen, drop your nets and come believe in me. He said, drop your nets, come follow me, and I'll show you a life worth believing in. In the 10th chapter of John, Jesus says this, the thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy, but I come to give you life and give it to you abundantly. I have come to show you what life is supposed to look like. I'm coming to show you what life in the pond is all about, what the abundant life is all about. And too often we think the abundant life he's referring to is talking about heaven. It's great news that because of what Jesus has done on the cross, when we die, we're forgiven and we go to heaven. But that's not what Jesus is talking about when he talks about the abundant life. He's not talking about someday after we die. He's talking about right here, right now. Let me show you how I created you to live. I created you to live an abundant life. And if you want to have that abundant life, you need to jump out of your tree and come follow me. Which takes us back to those baby ducks. Now, I got to be honest with you. I've never been that impressed by baby duck number 1. Mama duck says, quackity quack. Little guy comes out to the edge. There's been nothing in his entire life, all 24 hours of it, that would lead him to believe that Mama duck isn't completely trustworthy. So when Mama duck says quackity quack, he jumped. I've always been impressed by the second baby duck. Because when Mama duck said quackity quack again, second baby duck could have gone and went, yeah, no, I think you're out your mind. I'm not jumping. Did you see what happened to Billy? He bounced like a tennis ball. Thank you for the offer. I'm going to stay in the tree. The thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. So I've wondered from time to time, what would have happened to those baby ducks if they would have decided to stay in the tree? I tell you what would have happened. They would have been safe. They would have been comfortable. And if Mama Duck came back with food, they would have been well fed. Safe, comfortable, well fed. But they never would have learned how to fly. And they never would have experienced what life in the pond was all about. They never would have experienced the abundant life they were created to know and live. They would have been safe. They would have been comfortable, but they ultimately would have died in their safe, comfortable place. And what I've just described, unfortunately, is the condition of the North American church. Somewhere along the line, we decided that what was most important when it comes to Christianity is being safe, comfortable, and well-fed. All the while, Jesus stands at the bottom of our life and says, quackity quack, jump. Leave where you are to come to where I want to take you. I want you to have abundant life, and it's not going to be experienced in a safe, comfortable place. I've told you this story multiple times, but my older daughter, when she was a sophomore in college, 19 years old, decided to spend a semester at the University of Botswana in Southern Africa. If you're wondering, how many people did Kayla know in the entire country? That would be 0. She knew no one. She didn't even know the language. But she went. I still remember the day that I took her to the airport and waved off my 19-year-old daughter to fly by herself halfway around the world to go to school. And I was sitting with a colleague sometime thereafter, and that colleague said, Mike, I don't think I could do what you and Jen just did. I don't think I could send my daughters off to Botswana. And I looked at him and said, here's the mistake we make. We convince ourselves as parents that our primary job is to protect our children. Don't get me wrong, it's part of being a dad. You protect your kid, but our primary job as parents is not to protect our children. It's to raise our children to be followers of Jesus. And I tell you what, parents, the number one way to raise a kid to be a follower of Jesus is for them to see you following Jesus. And I got to tell you, following Jesus is not safe. It is certainly not comfortable. It is difficult to follow Jesus, but it's completely worth it. About a year ago, I got asked to speak at a church in Elk Grove. They were going through a pastor change. Their pastor had recently left, and they were in process of finding a new pastor. And so a friend of mine who was on their leadership team asked me to come and speak. And so I went to that church and I preached baby ducks. It seemed appropriate for where they were. As a congregation, they were about to jump into a new season. And if they're going to do it well, they better do it following Jesus instead of simply going to places of comfort and safety. But as I was sharing with them on that Sunday morning, I paused and I went, you know what? Every time a church goes through a pastor change, one thing that always happens, people leave the church. They do. During transition, people will leave a church. And, oh boy, being on a church staff, you hear this all the time. The number one thing that people will say when they leave a church is this: we just weren't being fed. And when I was sharing with this church in Elk Grove, I stopped at this moment in the sermon. We just don't feel like we're being fed. And I stopped and I looked out at this group of people I didn't know and said, really? What are you, 4 years old? At what point, as followers of Jesus, do we take personal responsibility for getting fed? Why do we keep waiting for somebody else? I've heard people that have been, quote, following Jesus for decades say, I just feel like we're not being fed. Who does that fall on? At what point is that on you? During this COVID season, I acknowledge doing the church thing, challenging. Doing church at home, it's got its benefits, but it can never be the same as all of us together in this sanctuary. I get it. What I don't get is people that have been following Jesus for years and years and years during the COVID season going, yeah, I'm just not being fed. Why not? There are opportunities for you to grow deeper in your relationship with Jesus and to go further in your disciplines with Jesus. Just because we can't gather as regularly in a church building, just because we can't gather with the size of a group that we desire, does not mean that we can't continue to grow. It does not mean that for the past 5 or 6 months, Jesus has stopped standing at the bottom of your life and mine and saying quackity quack. He's been saying it through his Spirit this entire COVID season. Quackity quack, jump, risk everything and come follow me. Leave your place of comfort. Leave the conclusion that safety is what we're after and come and follow Jesus. He's still at the bottom of your tree. saying quackity quack, jump. Now, every year for the past 6 years, I have preached this sermon. My first Sunday at this church, I preached about the baby ducks and about Jesus saying, drop your nets, come follow me. Don't just believe, come follow me. Every year I've preached baby ducks saying the thief comes to steal, kill, destroy, but I come to give you life and give it to you abundantly. Every year. It's to the point now, if you've been part of this church for a number of years, you could preach this sermon. In fact, if anybody ever asks you, hey, what's Community Covenant Church all about? You can answer in 2 words. Quackity quack. And when they look at you like, what? You can tell them all about the baby ducks and how what we desire above all else is to be a group of people that are following Jesus. One of the other words for being a follower of Jesus is being a disciple. And over the next 4 weeks, we're going to start a sermon series on discipleship. And the way we're organizing this sermon series is around 3 books and a video. Each week, we'll be looking at understanding discipleship a little bit more using one of those 4 resources. Now, on the screen right here, you'll see a picture of those books. The first book is Along Obedience in the Same Direction by Eugene Peterson. It actually walks through the Psalms of Ascent to help understand what discipleship's all about. The second book is The Signature of Jesus by Brennan Manning. The third week, it's not going to be a book. We're using a video from the Bible Project that's talking about the word witness and understanding that part of being a disciple is being a witness. And then the fourth week, we're using a book by Henry Nouwen called In the Name of Jesus, which is a book on leadership, but has a lot to say about what it looks like to make disciples. Here's my encouragement to you. Read one of those 3 books and watch the video. If you order on Amazon, you'll get the book within a couple of days. Because the Thursday after each of those weeks in the series, we're not going to do Connecting Thursday night for 4 weeks, because on Thursday nights, we're going to be doing kind of a book conversation. So pick one of the 4 books. First one we'll be looking at, Long Obedience, followed by Signature of Jesus, the video, and finally, In the Name of Jesus. We think that going deeper with this understanding of discipleship will help us be the baby ducks he created us to be. Because the reality is this. Jesus stands at the bottom of your tree and mine, the bottom of your life and mine, and says 2 words. Quackity quack. The question is, will we jump?
Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow. All your ways are good. All your ways are sure. I will trust in you alone. Higher than my sight, high above my life. I will trust in you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. When you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. This life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah. Light into the world, light into my life. I will live for you alone. You're the one I seek, knowing I will find. I need in you alone, in you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Whom you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. You love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah.
Hey families, one of the things that hopefully you received in your care package when we did deliveries a couple weeks ago, one of the things I was challenging all the families to do was what we called a month of intentionality. In the first week of the month, we are challenging you to pray every day using the 84 Days of Prayer booklet that we provided. And the second challenge was to write letters to your adopted pen pals. Ruth put notes and stationery and self-addressed stamped envelopes for people in our congregation that we'd love for you to start a pen pal relationship with. And for you older folks as well who got letters and stationery, we encourage you to write to the families. We received a letter from the Pruitts and it was awesome. And our kids have written back, and I'm going to drop these in the mail later today. And we also got Lois Kratz adopted for us. And so we're going to send a note to Lois as well. And so we encourage you. One of the ways in which we're trying to help you connect with God is through church at home and through other venues. But one of the things that we ask that you do too is do the best you can to connect with one another. And one of the ways that we would love for our younger families to connect with our older folks is by starting a pen pal relationship. So if you haven't done it, I encourage you, please write, if not a full letter, just a little note saying, hello, this is who we are. And we encourage you to keep it going, because one of the things that is a killer is isolation. And we want to make sure that our younger folks as well as our older folks know that they are as much of the part of the body as everybody else, and we want to make sure that we're all connected, even if it's virtual, even if it's through letters. So please, if you haven't done so already, I encourage you, do it. And if you need another envelope, if you've forgotten yours, lost yours, whatever, please let me know or Ruth in the office, and we'll be happy to provide you with another one. But I encourage you, let's keep the connection going, especially during this season.
We now come to the part of our service where we give and receive the morning offering, where we practice tithing. And the way we describe tithing as a church, you should be getting good at this, it's generosity and obedience. That's what tithing is. It's an act of discipleship. Now, because you give, we're able to do a number of things in and through our church, so thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're still wondering how to participate in the offering during this church at home season, online giving, text giving, just text 84321 into the amount, send, or you can mail it in. Again, thank you so much, church family, for being faithful givers during this season. Hey, want to give you a quick update on an opportunity coming up. Next week, we begin a 4-week series on discipleship. And one of the things we're doing during the 4-week series is we're using 3 different books to kind of aid in our conversation. Those 3 books are right over my shoulder here. My encouragement, pick one. Pick one of those 3 books and begin reading them. Because each Thursday night, following one of the sermons on discipleship, we're having a book conversation on one of those 3 books. You don't have to do all of them. Just choose one and then join us on a Thursday night, 7 to 8:30, for a conversation about discipleship based on what these authors are sharing about discipleship. If you have any questions, contact us in the church office. We'd love to get you involved in one of those book conversations. Now, usually at this point, I tell you to stand where you are for the benediction, not this morning. This morning for the benediction, stay seated. And let some baby ducks send us out.
It's spring, and the northern forests are bursting with life. "50 feet up a tree, a mandarin duck emerges from a nest hole. Behind her, her young family hatched only the day before. The treetop hollow she chose has kept them safe until now. But now they must head to water, and there's no alternative but to make the leap. They can't fly yet, and their mother can't do anything to help them except encourage them to take the plunge. And their faith in her is total. Luckily, the leafy forest floor cushions the landing. Eventually, all of them make it down unscathed. But they won't be safe until they reach water, and the forest pool is almost a mile away. There are potential predators among the trees. The ducklings certainly shouldn't linger. At last, the relative safety of the water.